Hey guys, Dustin here. Welcome to another episode of Horroritis. So today we are reviewing It. So there you go.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Before we jump in, there are spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the movie, go watch the movie first. This is not an if you should watch it or not. This is why I liked it and what I liked and what I didn't like about it. So there are definitely spoilers. You have been officially warned. So the first thing about this, going in watching it, is I had both the book and the miniseries in my head, and you know, I went in, I was definitely biased 100% going into this movie, and I didn't know what to expect, but I was almost positive that I would find something that didn't match up, because I enjoyed the book, but I enjoyed the miniseries much more because that's what I saw first when I was a kid. That's kind of the thing that introduced me to the concept of clowns being scary, even though I friggin' love clowns and I love scary clowns. So I mean, it didn't really work for me on that level, I guess. But like I said, the miniseries was, you know, I've got that memorized, and I've read the book, I reread the book recently, just, you know, to go in knowing what I was looking for. And honestly, I wasn't too disappointed with what I saw in the movie. The storyline held up. It matched pretty well to the book. It kept all the important bits. It changed up a lot of things that were weak from the miniseries, I suppose. I always wanted to see Pennywise be more of a monster, even though, you know, Tim Curry was creepy as hell, and he had that psychological thing. I don't know, something about Tim Curry just naturally creepy, which makes him an amazing actor. And even, you know, when he was doing, like, Home Alone 2, creepiest hotel employee I've ever seen in my life. So, and I've seen some real-life creepy hotel employees. Yeah, I have. So a few changes to this movie from the miniseries. I believe in the miniseries, Ben was the new kid in town, but also maybe so was Mike. In this one, Ben is a new kid, and Mike is just homeschooled, because the miniseries took place in, like, what, the 50s? Something like that. This one takes place in the 80s, late 80s, I think. And so they've updated it mostly, and I think that's just so the sequel can take place present day. So the characters all stay mostly the same compared to the miniseries. You know, Bill stutters, Richie can't shut up, Stan is kind of boring and scared, Eddie is a slave to his mother. Everything is about the same. One of the big improvements was with Pennywise himself, and it's not like the makeup or anything like that, because I still really enjoy Tim Curry's Pennywise. But with Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, he brought out more of a rage, because, you know, it's Pennywise hates the children, and, you know, Tim Curry was able to bring that across too. But with Bill Skarsgård, it's more like it's not just an anger or hate, it's like an insane rage that, you know, once he gets in on those kids, he wants to just literally just destroy them, which obviously happened in the miniseries, but it really is shown in the movie, and I really like that quite a bit. Another thing I really like that they changed up a little bit from the miniseries is the bathroom scene in Beverly's house. You know, in the miniseries, it was a balloon full of blood and exploded, and it got on the sink and on the wall and in the mirror and stuff like that. But in the movie, it was much more dramatic and way bigger. It wasn't just a balloon, it was hair coming up and wrapping around her and trying to drag her into the drain. And as she gets loose, just it erupts blood and everything is covered in blood. And it was like that scene in Nightmare on Elm Street where Johnny Depp gets sucked into the bed and then that big fountain of blood comes up and covers the whole room. It was kind of like that. you know, it was that amount of blood, and it was really, really cool. I liked the way they did that. It was visually more pleasing, and well, I guess it would be scarier. Also, in the movie, they take the photo album scene from the original where they were all flipping through it and Pennywise comes dancing up the street. You know, they took that, and instead of having a photo album, it was a photo slide. So every time they'd click it, you know, something else would happen, and Pennywise was there and actually climbs out of the wall, and he is like massive, like bigger than he should be, and it was pretty cool. I really liked that effect, and it was a little bit cooler than just the, you know, the gloved hand coming out of the book in the miniseries, and they pull off the glove and it's, you know, like a creepy reptile hand. It was in the movie it was much cooler than that, so I really liked that. One place though where I felt this movie was kind of weak is when it went through each individual kid's fear. I know that Pennywise has to play on each kid's fear individually to properly scare them, and in the miniseries it showed everybody's individual fear, but it felt really rushed in the movie. Like, you know, well, we have to hurry up and scare each kid individually so that we can get to the big ending, and then that sets everything up for the second movie, which is coming out I think next year. And in the miniseries, it was kind of like they could jump back and forth, and, you know, there was a lot of stuff in between, and it didn't feel like it was just, you know, like they were shooting by numbers. You know, in the miniseries, it was like, well, here's this grown up, and he's kind of messed up, and here's why. And then there's some story, scary stuff, and then story. Oh, here's another grown up, and he's messed up, and here's why, and it just happens to connect to this other guy. And, you know, it felt more layered and more rounded out. And in the movie, it's kind of like, well, we have to get this scare, and then we can get to this thing here. So let's just do all of those in quick succession. And it felt too fast, and it really almost felt comical because of it. Not that the effects weren't good or the scares weren't scary. It's just that there was no cool down time in between, so you couldn't. It was like you're up for a monster, and then, oh look, here's another monster, and then, oh look, here's another monster. By the time you get to the end, you just don't care about what thing Pennywise has turned into this time, because there's no rest in between the monsters, and so it doesn't have the impact that I think it probably should have had. Another thing I didn't like was Beverly's dad. Now, obviously, Beverly's dad is a dick in the book and in the miniseries and in the movie, and I can't remember 100% how Beverly's dad was portrayed in the book, but in the miniseries, you know, we know he was abusive, and it caused her to grow up and be in an abusive relationship. But it kind of stopped at the abuse. Some more stuff was maybe implied, but you know, it was more like physical abuse, and, you know, he was controlling her. In the movie, they really ramped that up. I mean, he's obviously abusive to her, but he's also very mentally and emotionally abusive, and it comes right up to the point of where we understand that he is molesting her. And I don't think that was necessary to make us dislike Beverly's dad or endear us to Beverly. I mean, the Beverly character was already well-rounded on her own, and, you know, she was a very likable character, and the audience would obviously get a connection to the character, like with all the kids. You know, they're all very well written and acted well, so you automatically have a connection to these characters as an audience member. We didn't need the extra trauma to make us like Beverly, and, you know, Beverly's dad was already an asshole. We already hated him, so we didn't really need that to make us hate him more. And I think that's where the miniseries got it right and the movie got it wrong. And it seems more and more as I'm, going back and rereading stuff and watching movies, it seems that molestation seems to factor into a lot of King's work. And I'm not saying it's bad that he throws that in there, but it is a trope, and it is a tired trope, and it gets used far too often by a lot of people, and it's just not as effective as it once used to be. All in all, this movie, I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it to everybody. Anybody who's a fan of the book or the miniseries, who hasn't read the book or hasn't seen the miniseries, anybody going in blind or is a huge King fan, I think this has something for everybody. It's a good movie for anybody across the board, and I would definitely recommend it. The effects were good. The story was good. It had a couple weak points that I covered, but those definitely weren't deal breakers, and I'm very much looking forward to the sequel. I want to see them as adults, and would it not be awesome if Seth Green came back and played adult Richie, since he was Kid Richie in the miniseries? Just throwing that out there. I personally would love to see it. So, did you agree with my review? Let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. My social media links and all that good stuff are down in the description box. So, until next time, I'm Dustin. This was Horroritis. As always, keep it creepy.